Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Oh.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
Power to us, doing what we love. It's time to bang. Oh, yeah, it's Friday. I know for a fact you ain't got shit to do. Let's get fired up. We're in your face hole. It's Morning Kombat, the best damn combat sports show they ever considered putting together, and the one that just won't die. Brian Campbell, live and direct from the suburbs of Connecticut with you. Happy to be here, BBC, with all of that BDE. But you might come here for my co-host. Yes, there he is. He's from Washington, D.C., He's silver and gold. Oh, he's silver and gray. And look at that tattoo right there. He's a former Marine sergeant, and he once got busy in a Joseph A. Banks bathroom. It's Luke Thomas. Yes.
What's up, BC? How you doing?
Yeah, fired up, Luke Thomas. After the show, I'm going to get on a bird and head over to Vegas for that PBC on Prime event with Sebastian Fundora. But we are here today to talk about UFC London, look at the biggest stories of the past few days involving Jon Jones, Ryan Garcia, TKO boxing, and so much more. And how about one championship 172 pay-per-view this weekend, a kickboxing matchup that will be seen and heard around the world, Luke. So get yourselves fired up, all right? Are you feeling what I'm feeling?
Actually, it's a great weekend of combat sports. As you mentioned, PBC has Sebastian Fundora back in action, a 6'6", 154-pounder. But then on top of that, Cage Warriors is today, UFC London tomorrow, and then as you indicated, one championship. I guess early morning East Coast time here on Sunday, but altogether a packed weekend of combat
that
sports.
one championship event featuring Takeru versus Rodtang is at the Saitama Super Arena. So plenty of history there of combat sports, fired up to be there. You can, by the way, if you enjoy this product, you can like it on YouTube. You can subscribe to what we got going on right there. You can follow us on the socials, including our independent YouTube channels, which is really just an extension of what we do here on MK, whether you're talking about the BCX, the Luke Thomas experience in a way. And don't forget, of course, about the main card minute and our producer, director, bong enthusiast, and son of an Australian. Hey, let's meet Luke Nocita.
Hey, world's worst boyfriend. There he is, everybody.
On, this is the running joke. Guys, I'm hyped for UFC London this weekend. I feel like it's a great card.
It's a totally great card. BC was a little bit down on it pre-show. A little bit.
Not down. I'm not down. What was the word you used, Nocita?
I said I'm hyped for this card or something.
No, you used some huge word, and I'm like, I really like this card. I'm ready. But I was just like, don't overdo it. But, you talked me into some of those undercard matchups that I may have missed because you are our resident degenerate hardcore.
I got you. Also, 4 fights on this card. Pick 'em odds. Plenty of money to be made on this card.
Are you betting on any of them in any way?
Any of them?
Every single fight, obviously. What kind of question is that?
Great stuff.
Boyfriend of the year right there, everybody.
Yes. Luke, will we be having a special guest today as well in the one segment?
Yes. So here's the thing. Obviously, 172 takes place this weekend, headlined by Rodtang taking on Takeru, which is a fight literally years in the making at this point. And I was like, listen, we do have some things to talk about with one that BC and I will talk about, but I was like, we got to get somebody to help us. So Timothy Wheaton, if you guys may not know him, and he'll plug his stuff in there. He is a kickboxing aficionado. He helps us out. I pre-recorded an interview with him yesterday. He's great. Tons of good information in this one. So big shouts to Timothy Wheaton. Follow his work, and we really appreciate his contribution today.
Yes, hell yeah. Can't wait to check that out. Thank you so much, users, viewers, listeners, degenerates, for tuning in today. We're big fans of you. Thank you for keeping us afloat. And we are about to get into it. I don't know, almost right about now. Luke, anything else you want to say? Weekend plans, health updates?
I'll be doing a watch along for the top fights at UFC London. Then, of course, a live post-fight show. So check that out, youtube.com/Luke Thomas.
All right. I believe is that a 1 p.m. Eastern main card start on Saturday?
No, I think the main card starts at like 4, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 1 p.m. prelims, 4 p.m. main.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Long Island Luke. All right, let's get into our topic. It's number one, and it's the big one of the weekend. UFC London, a plus fight night card. I was telling Luke, almost reminiscent of a UFC on Fox quarterly card from back in the day. We expect a raucous crowd there in the UK. And how about UK's own Leon Edwards making the return in this 5-round welterweight matchup against Sean Brady, the first fight for Rocky since losing that title to Bilal Muhammad last summer. There's been excuses. There's been trying to figure out exactly where the 33-year-old former welterweight champion is at as he welcomes in that hungry Philadelphia grappler. Luke Thomas, as we speak to kick off this segment, our friends at DraftKings have Leon Edwards as a plus 130 underdog against the minus 155 Sean Brady. First and foremost, did the odds makers get that part right?
That's a tough question. That's a really tough question. I'm going to say yes. And I think the reason why is that, I mean, of course, part of the story here, again, and betting odds are always designed in a way to induce betting. So they're not necessarily a clear demonstration of like who is the favorite or for what reason. But if the implication is that Brady deserves to be, kind of favored here a little bit, I do think that is correct. I think that he is clearly has turned a corner since the Muhammad fight. I think he has absolutely numerous things that are going to give Leon problems. And if you just watch the Gilbert Burns fight in particular, what you really notice from that one is that he gets stronger as the fight goes longer. It really is quite remarkable how much better he gets. He got 7 takedowns in that fight. He got 3 of them in the 5th round. And then he got 31 significant strikes. He landed. Gilbert Burns, just 9. Right. Wow. So he really began to put it on him late. I think that's going to serve his interests in something like this against Leon Edwards. At the same time, and we'll get to this, I'm sure, BC, there are real individual instances where I think Leon Edwards is going to have clear advantages. As we indicated on Monday, if you're Leon Edwards, it is a big change to go from Jack Della Maddalena to Sean Brady. However, in the scope of what he's done more recently in his career with the Kamaru Usman rematch and trilogy, Colby Covington, and then last Bilal Muhammad, this is the same kind of fighter. Everyone's a little bit different, but the same kind of fighter that he's faced before. So that should give him some real opportunity for his own improvement. Slight adjustments carry big consequences. He should be able to make them. It's just that I feel like Sean Brady is right on the cusp of becoming the best version of what he can be. He's got to get past Leon Edwards to do it. I think he can. I think he probably will. But it's close.
Yeah,
it's real
these
close.
Odds tell you how close this is. We talk so much about, I mean, the questions we have for Leon Edwards. Is he just a streaky fighter? Is he mercurial? Is he, does he get in his own head? There's been inconsistencies within this overall incredible run, which of course included back-to-back victories over the former champion Kamaru Usman, pay-per-view win over Colby Covington. But who we saw Leon to be last year against the pressure of Bilal Muhammad just wasn't that same guy. Now, Leon says the following thing I'm going to show you is not a big deal, but Luke, we have MMA fans that are sleuths, right? They can see through the pictures and find the truth. If any hashtag staph infection heads are out there, here's Leon at, I believe, like a public workout or something. You see that on his forearm. The quote from Leon was that it happened 6 weeks ago and it's all good. Luke, due to your extensive medical background from the College of William and Mary, should we be concerned about that?
Yes, based on my vast medical expertise in studying philosophy in 2002. Here's my rule of thumb on this. It's the same one that we applied whenever we see, Sean Strickland had the last one, correct? If correct, yes. Right? The question is not did he have staph. He, to the point you raised, he confirmed it, right? He had staph. The question is, was he on antibiotics for it recently? And or how long was he on antibiotics? So even if he's not on it, let's say this week, how long was he on it before that? And to what extent, what particular antibiotics was he on? Was he on IV administered ones? Was he on oral antibiotics? Whatever. And again, what was the length of term there? Because obviously this can affect your cardio. This can affect your training. This can affect, I'm not sure what the proper description is, but like the tensile strength of some of your connective tissue. You have to pare down training so that you don't get injured. I remember I was on antibiotics for for like 5 months I've been on antibiotics, and the doctors are, depending on which ones you're on and the ones that they're on to treat this, they typically it follows this, which is that, you can't lift weights in certain cases, or you have to be very, very careful lifting weights because your body has been depleted in this particular way. So the question is, like, what did that do to his training? And these are, of course, unknowable. But BC, you started off by asking, did the odds makers get it right? There are, of course, many reasons to look at this and think that Leon Edwards has a great shot. I am not one of these guys that thinks even if Sean Brady wins, he's just going to go in there and do to him what he did to Kelvin Gastelum. That is absolutely not what I expect. But when you look at some of the other factors, if he dealt with staph and then, any kind of lengthy course of antibiotics in which to deal with it, that did probably impact his training and probably at least will show up in some kind of way over the course of a 25-minute fight.
I mean, let's not forget, Leon was pound for pound top 5 a year ago, and now we're talking about at 33. Is he over the hill? Is he too inconsistent? One of the things we talked about on Monday's storylines, of course, was the excuse making in regards to the loss to Belal. Belal has come out, of course, and called Leon Edwards weak for these excuses. Here is Leon Edwards from Media Day responding to that accusation from Muhammad.
Said recently on Twitter that you're full of excuses and mentally weak regarding, obviously, your fight together. What's your take on that? What's your response?
The way Belal talks is like he went out there and like fucking knocked me down and dropped me and battered me for the whole round. Like all he did was wrestled me, single-legged me, picked me up, put me against the cage. He did no damage really. I think at the end of the fight, if anything, he was the one on the floor leaking, about to get stopped. You know what I mean? So if I was already broken, you're about to get stopped. 1 more minute out of that fight, you would have got stopped. You know what I mean? So, the way he talks, he just doesn't. From what he does in the cage, he's 2 different person. He talks like he's like Mike Tyson, but when he fights, he's not. You know what I mean? So, it is what it is. I feel like, yeah, it is what it is.
And he said that he's picking Sean Brady, obviously, this weekend. But is it personal between you two?
Not really. I just don't like him. I mean, I don't think wouldn't be friends outside the sport. I wouldn't know who he is. You know what I mean? So, no, not really.
And Sean Brady told us today in the media day that it's a bad look, he thinks, for you to be talking so much about Belal in the run-up to this fight.
I'm not talking about Belal. You asked me about Belal. I'm not talking about him. You keep asking me about him, but yeah.
Do you think it's hard for you to get away from that subject?
So you heard in there the mention of Sean Brady echoing what Belal said. We'll play one more sound for you from Sean Brady, and then we can react to it about this topic, maybe of Leon being in his own head.
For a title match?
I'm not trying to get a title shot out of this, I'm not trying to rush it. That's what I did before in my career. With the Belal fight, I was pushing for that so hard, and it turned out that wasn't the night for me, So I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do my job, get my hand raised by any means necessary, and then wherever I go from there, I go.
Thank you very much. Good luck this Saturday.
Yeah, Sean, just here. Just going back to
where you
said,
at?
Yeah, here.
Oh, what's up, brother?
Yeah, good. If you beat Leon, you'll become the #1 contender. Would you be disappointed if the UFC didn't offer you that next? Because all week Leon has been saying that it's an immediate rematch next. It's the title next for me. Would you be disappointed if that wasn't your next fight?
No, I think that's a bad look on Leon to be thinking about other people when all I'm thinking about is fighting him. He's thinking about #1 contenders and getting back at Belal and talking shit about Belal. But he's got someone who's trying to kill him Saturday night in front of him, and he has more things to be concerned about than being a #1 contender in the division.
Yeah, and just lastly, who would your ideal opponent be for your title shot?
Belal, of course.
Belal.
Yep.
Of course, we know that Sean would want to run back that recent loss in which he's turned his career around in some degree, 2-0 since that point. But Luke, about what we're talking about with Leon, is it fair to say that in some ways he's almost his own biggest enemy, that maybe he's focusing too much on other things than this Philadelphia gorilla coming after him?
He admitted, this week that he had dealt with staph recently. That's sort of one obstacle, and there's nothing he can really do about that, obviously. But it's something to keep in mind. But to the point you raised, he had also kind of indicated, and that audio clip kind of speaks to it to a degree, which was like he just it's Belal. Like I didn't even take Belal seriously, and it's like, okay, you're the welterweight champion of the world fighting a #1 contender at 5 a.m. Like, you can't get up for that. Like that's just bizarre to me to hear something like that. Absolutely bizarre. You would have never seen George St. Pierre say something like that. Like it would have absolutely never left his lips. And the reason why I would have never left his lips is because he never would have been in that position to begin with, right? I mean, it's just insane to say something.
He's too busy
like
greasing for BJ, right? You know what I mean?
Okay, fair point. But you see what I'm getting at. Like, it's just insane to be the champion and be like, oh, well, you know, I thought so little of my contender. I was surprised he was able to take 3 clean rounds for me, potentially 4. It's just madness to me. And so here he is a little bit later, still kind of dismissive of Bilal, kind of dismissive of what he was. Now, listen, some of the things that Muhammad has said, obviously, you know, he a little bit exaggerated, right? And so Leon's trying to correct the record. And to his point, he was beating him up in that 5th round. That is very, very true. But that was also too little, too late. I mean, that's also the reality. If I was him, and granted, I'm no position to tell any prize fighter what they should be doing, but just observing what the really, really good ones do who can maintain that longevity, they don't ever let their minds get to a place where the person they're up against has, like, you know, they like hedge their chances. They don't ever seem to do that. They treat it all as like an existential threat, 5-alarm fire. And it looks to me that like that loss that, I mean, consider something, BC. Consider something. Both Sean Brady and Leon Edwards have losses to Bilal Muhammad. Now, one was worse than the other. Brady got beat worse. There's no question about it. But who seems to have learned the lesson better coming out of it? You know, again, that may not necessarily carry any one of them to victory. But just to answer that question, it looks to me like Sean Brady got a lot more out of that loss than Leon did. He seemed to take it quite to heart. And that's not a guarantee of victory, as I indicated, but it certainly puts him in a best position to get one.
I mean, you mentioned that, you know, Leon is still out here disparaging, disrespecting Bilal, who beat him. I think Sean's trying to say you're also disrespecting me by not taking me seriously and always talking about Bilal. So we got the mental half out of the way. Let's get into the physical. Let's get into the X's and O's. Luke, you know when I like to look at the central tension that might decide this fight. Bilal is a pressure fighter, and we know that Edwards was kind of lifeless at times with his back to the cage. Sean Brady doesn't pressure the same way. It's not built off of the jab and in your face as much. He can be a counter puncher, and he can also be looking to shoot for the takedown. What type of difference do you think that'll make? Because it's clear that Edwards kind of fell apart amid that pressure from Bilal.
So I think you can, I mean, not so much the jab, but let's say a flurry of a flurry of that from Sean Brady is typically what he likes to do is get someone to raise their guard and then to get underneath it with, you know, either an underhook, body lock, or to go right to the double. But I want to say 2 things about Bilal Muhammad. It's kind of funny that we're talking about this fight and then Bilal Muhammad features so prominently in these discussions, but it really is quite relevant and important to note. I did a breakdown. You can catch it on my Substack if you want, about how Bilal Muhammad took out Leon Edwards. And one of the things that you really notice from that, and I confirmed it with his coaches, is just the insane level of specificity that they put into a game plan. They didn't have a general idea about what they wanted to do. They didn't even have, like, you know, a specific idea about what they wanted to do. They had a highly specific idea about what they wanted to do in each of the scenarios that Leon was going to be pressed in, and then what his reactions would be. It was remarkable how specifically good it was. I bring this all up to say, to me, what's kind of interesting about it is those specific things that they pinpointed as weaknesses for Edwards, they're real. But the question is whether or not Sean Brady has that particular ability to take advantage of it. Let me give you an example about what I'm talking about. It's not just where he was shooting, which is something I've discussed a lot, where you would see Bilal Muhammad put his right ear to the right hip consistently every time, because Leon Edwards on the tape, he doesn't use his right arm very well for down blocking, for underhooking, framing, getting it involved. So they knew if they could bring his head to that side off the double, that they would have great success. And sure enough, that is exactly what happened. But here's the thing about that. If you actually look at their shots, the way they shoot and their penetration step, Bilal Muhammad has a very low, fast shot. I mean, Hamzat is obviously quicker, but it's kind of like that. That is not how Brady shoots. That's really not the same kind of way. He doesn't really have that like hardcore, explosive penetration step into the double. So, you know, is that something necessarily he's going to be able to take advantage of? I don't think. What I think, where I absolutely think this fight is going to be won and lost, BC, and I truly mean this, is the clinch along the fence.
Okay.
I think that is going to be absolutely the demarcation line here more than anything else, because, while Bilal would, he would back him up and whatever, and then have this explosive shot underneath, Brady is probably going to try and make him cover, press him into the fence, and then begin to work from that position. Whereas Bilal is a few feet away and then slamming into him off of that shot. I don't think Brady's going to do that. And what makes that really interesting is, one, I think that could tire out Leon Edwards. Like, if we're talking about things that are good for Sean Brady, we just mentioned he gets stronger as the fight goes longer. He was able to solve the riddle of Gilbert Burns, who has very good defensive wrestling, if nothing else, right? So you're going to be able to wear him down potentially, really, just drain him and just make him carry the weight as time goes on, even if you don't necessarily get the takedown. But here's the interesting contrast, and this is where I think Edwards has real life in this one. Edwards has got, under situations like that, typically pretty good takedown defense, and more to that, he's got really good strikes in the clinch off of the clinch break, in particular elbows. He has slashing, hardcore elbows right over the top. They land against virtually all of his opponents. They score great damage. They often do some cutting, depending on the situation, obviously. But they're very, very, very important to everything he does. And that's something I think that could really derail what Sean Brady is trying to do. But I guess I just wanted to point out, if you're asking me what the demarcation line is, it is once they are up against the fence, clinched together, how does Sean Brady drain? How does he get him down to the mat? He's probably going to do what I think he's going to try and do is get behind the elbows of Leon Edwards. So then now he can attack from the waist behind, trip out the leg, and then just slowly bleed him dry. BC, if I think there's a stoppage in this fight, I think it's Edwards who stops Brady. But if it goes to a decision, I tend to think that should favor Sean Brady. An interesting style clash.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to your point, shooters are going to shoot whether your last name is Oswald or Velasquez. But Luke, we just learned from Ankalaev that you don't actually need to take someone down to win with that fence grappling pressure, which is ultimately what he did. But it wasn't all that entertaining. Is there snooze fest potential in this one?
Yes. But also, listen, that crowd is going to be hyping him up. Leon Edwards talked a lot of shit about that being, we didn't want to fight at 5 a.m. Fair enough. I don't think that helped anything, but that's not in play here anymore. And I do think Sean Brady is going to be grinding, certainly up against the fence. There's just no doubt that could lead to prolonged periods of stalemate or inactivity. So now here's a question, BC, which is, do we know who the referee is? Do we have that?
I don't have that information.
Yeah.
Maybe LIL does.
Long Island Luke, do you have the information?
Top of my head, no, but I could Google it.
Yeah, please Google. That is going to be highly relevant here. And I'm going to say it one more time for all the people who are like, I don't want any stand-ups. And if you can't separate, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. If action stalls, get involved. I don't know if the referee will in this case, but BC, if I'm thinking just down the line, what could play a hugely determinative role about how this goes if it goes to a decision, the extent to which, if their action is stalled, the referee does anything about it could play a massive role.
Referees don't do much about it anymore, Luke. So if I'm one of them, I'm looking to see who can get the first eye poke. But we talked about the physical side of it. That'll come into play. We know Sean Brady, is just a machine, a tank. But there were little shots fired from Leon Edwards regarding the size of Sean Brady when they did stand off across from each other. So why don't we do it? I think it's time right now for a little shots fired, brought to you by Cuervo. And we can go to the face-off that they did earlier this week in London. You can see the height difference. And here's what Leon Edwards told reporters at Media Day. Quote, I didn't know he was that small. I was walking towards him and he had his back turned to me. And I looked over and I was like, where the fuck is Sean? Then he turned around and I was like, what the hell? So yeah, I think he's about 5'8", 5'9", probably. I feel like the size difference, the reach, and the strength will play a big part in this fight. Luke, height differences has not stopped certain people in mixed martial arts. Look at Joe Rogan's career arc. But is this a fair shot being fired by Leon regarding the true what he's up against in this fight.
Yeah, yes and no. He has a 2-inch reach advantage that should play a role. And of course, we've seen Sean Brady. We had him on the RSD couch. He is not a tall welterweight. He does not necessarily give off he's not the biggest welterweight I've ever seen. Let's put it that way. However, if Leon Edwards thinks he's going to have a strength advantage over Sean Brady, he is about to be in for a rude fucking awakening. Absolutely not. He'll get mauled in a strength competition. There's just no doubt in my mind whatsoever about that. Now, of course, skilled fighting means you have technique, and technique makes up for a lot of strength. All these things are in the wash together. But did you see the grip test that they did?
Yes.
Yeah. The only guy to beat Sean Brady was 205er Carlos Ulberg, and it was only by 7 kilos.
Wow.
Please be serious about this. What are we talking about here? He is a gorilla, and other welterweights who have fought him, we talk about Michael Chiesa, but he ain't the only one, have told us, Jesus, that guy is strong. So absolutely not. But BC, he is going to be rangier. He's going to have better long-range weapons. I think kicking is going to be an interesting question here for Leon. Does he do it in order to keep maybe some of the hands holstered of a guy like Sean Brady? Does he do it because Sean Brady obviously is going to be a little bit more at a disadvantage, relatively speaking, in terms of pure striking skill in these ranges? Does he not do it because he doesn't want to risk it getting taken down? These are all relevant factors. And Sean Brady, to that point, is from afar wearing sweats, he doesn't look that imposing. But once he gets his hands on you, now the gorilla begins to do what he's going to do. So I think it's a yes and no kind of answer. But it's just, this is what I mean. This is what I freaking mean, BC.
Well, let me pause you on that. I just wanted to tell you, Luke, I just wanted to interrupt you to say that Shots Fired has been brought to you by Cuervo. And by the way, now's a good time as any to enjoy the tequila that invented tequila. Shout out to Cuervo. This was Shots Fired.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. This is what I meant. It's fine to observe that your opponent is a little bit smaller than maybe you would have imagined, but it just seems like yet another log on the fire of him being like, oh, he's small. I'll have all these advantages over him. And it's like, what is the line, BC, between him being very confident, as any fighter should be, and dismissive? And it's a thin line, but it just seems to me that Leon's a little bit kind of crossing over into that other one all the time.
I mean, isn't this part of the reason why we overlooked him on the rise up and said, he's not marketable enough. He never got his receipt back against Masvidal for that backstage incident. Nate almost solved him. Weird eye poke in the first Bilal fight there. I mean, yet Luke, round 5, headshot dead, and the Rocky story came to life. So as we turn this into our prediction here, will the real Leon Edwards please stand up? Which one are we getting? We getting Leon or are we getting Rocky on Saturday?
I think we're getting Leon. I mean, listen, we started this conversation talking about the odds. This is a close one. And if people don't believe in Sean Brady because of what happened, let's say, not just in the Bilal Muhammad fight, but go back to the Michael Chiesa fight where he was able to win that one with positional control, but he had some real damage. There wasn't enough damage that he was putting it on him. I think those are fair considerations. I think that that's absolutely something that you should take seriously. And, listen, if you want to be like, hey, I think Leon as an underdog is a good betting proposition, I fully understand that as well. In preparation for today, I rewatched the Gilbert Burns fight and some other ones here from Sean Brady. I really feel like he has learned a lot of valuable lessons from that loss. It's what I mean. And the way in which he was able to overcome a very sturdy Gilbert Burns. Yes, a 38-year Gilbert Burns, of course, but one who still has very good jiu-jitsu, very good defensive wrestling, and obviously a wealth of experience. And to be able to just put it on him even more as the fight went long, I just thought it was very impressive. Kept himself safe in the stand-up, BC. Didn't make a lot of errors. That was a big one before. I like Sean Brady in this contest. I mean, and I think again, to the point you raised, could it be boring? Yes, it could. Absolutely. But I feel like he's ready to really make a push here, and we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Here's the interesting question, though. What if Leon doesn't have these concerns we're talking about? What if we get, 75 to 100% of the best Leon? And what if he's able to stop the takedown consistently? What if he has weapons for the clinch to keep Sean away? If this turns into a 5-round kickboxing bout, has Brady evolved his game enough to beat a former top 5 pound for pound guy? That's why I'm still leaning with the underdog Leon, because I believe, Luke, he's going to be better than he showed mentally, verbally this week. And I still have questions whether Sean Brady, if he has to go toe-to-toe with somebody, can get the better of them. Is that a legitimate concern here?
Yeah, totally. If he has to, if he can't, so Sean Brady averages 3.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. So more than one a round. Now he doesn't have to get that every single round, obviously. Like I think there was a round in like maybe round 2 or something. He didn't get any takedowns on Gilbert Burns. So it doesn't have to get him every single round. But basically, if he can't get takedowns, I don't think he can beat Leon. I think it's as simple as that. By the way, I don't think that's exclusive to Sean Brady. I think there's actually a lot of welterweights who, if they were forced to just stand with him, could they win? Could Bilal Muhammad, who's the freaking champion, could he have won if he just had to stand with him? I don't know about that. That's a completely different proposition at that point. So to your point, if we end up in a place where like the takedown just isn't happening or we're entering round 3, Sean Brady's in some trouble in that scenario for sure.
All right, I'm leaning Leon. Luke is leaning Brady. Their odds, once again, from DraftKings, plus 130, Rocky Edwards, minus 155, Sean Brady. Let's bring in our betting expert, Nosita. Settle the difference. What's the value bet here, and who do you think really wins this?
The value bet is definitely Leon at plus money. Personally, I'm taking the over 2.5 in a parlay. Fuck, man, you both make good points.
Just straight up, gun to your head.
Gun to my head, I'm going headshot dead, baby.
Okay.
Leon Edwards, let's go.
Interesting.
There it is. Let's get into this fantastic co-main event. Both of these light heavyweights in this crossroads matchup believe that a victory will elevate them immediately to a title shot against the winner of the expected rematch between Magomed Ankalaev and former champion Alex Pereira. This time, it's 42-year-old former champion himself, Jan Blachowicz, coming back after nearly 2 years off due to double shoulder surgery. Surgery recovery so difficult that he considered retirement multiple times, but he's back and he's a plus 245 underdog, according to DraftKings, against a streaking, handsome Carlos Ulberg, who is minus 305 favorite coming in. Luke, I believe this is a 3-round fight. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest it's a 5-round fight. But do you think those odds are acceptable given the questions coming in on Jan? Or maybe should the betting odds been focused on that as good as Ulberg is, he's riding a hell of a win streak. He's only fought Volkan Ozdemir of those higher level guys. That's got to come into play when you're handicapping this matchup.
I don't think the odds are crazy on this one. Okay. I've had shoulder reconstruction. I tore my labrum completely. My shoulder fell out of my socket in my sleep. I mean, it was bad. Not everyone's rehab is the same, but I didn't feel right until about a year later. It took forever for shit to feel like it was normal again. And I did aggressive physical therapy to get it back. And this happened when I was 29, not when I was 39 or 40. Completely different proposition. He had that on not one, but 2 shoulders. I mean, understand something. Like your knee just bends. That's it. But your shoulder can go to the side, it can go forward, it can go backwards, it can do all different kinds of stuff. It is a much more complicated joint to heal. And he had both of them motherfuckers under surgical repair. That is extremely difficult to come back from, and to be in your 40s, now 42, off for basically 2 years. And here's the thing. I've not necessarily been the biggest believer in Carlos Ulberg. He looked interesting as a prospect. He's 34. It's not like he's a young guy. Granted, 34 is a lot younger than 42, especially at 205. But, you get the point I'm trying to make. It wasn't like he was surging through. But I tell you what, man, you're right. The only opponent he's faced where I was like, okay, that's a quality opponent he just beat was the Volkan Ozdemir fight. But I remember going into that one, I was like, yeah, I don't know. Ozdemir's looking pretty good here too. I think I'll probably beat him. And then Ulberg, I thought, performed very well in that contest. I thought he looked really, really good, has really understood, like he picked a style, and he's got this kind of rangy sort of in and out style, lateral movement a lot of the times. He's not really a pocket boxer in that way, in the same kind of way anyway. I mean, he'll do a little bit of it, but not much. but he didn't really understand like what maintaining that style meant. And it seems to me that he now understands the parameters of it much better. He gets it much more, and he's going to be able to be, I think, faster in this contest. He's going to be able to fight at range, I think, very nimbly. His movement is going to be pretty good. And, the other part too, BC, is if I had double shoulder surgery, I'm sure Jan is going to say he, finally feels comfortable and confident to be able to throw punches and like trust that. But I wonder if in the back of his mind that it really will be true once the fight actually starts, or, if, he takes a shot to the arm even and it, rattles him a little bit, or, anything like that, where it can sow seeds of doubt or potentially even confusion about how well this thing is going to be able to operate or to work for him through the course of that bout. The time off, BC, the age, the coming back from surgery against a guy in Carlos Ulberg who looks to me like he's really beginning to put together all the pieces of his style. Yeah, I totally get why the odds are, and I fully agree with them.
All right, let me push back on Jan potentially here, okay? His major blemishes of his, reinventive, rejuvenated late 30s have come in 3 of his last 4 fights, right? We're, of course, talking about the title loss relatively early and quickly to Glover Teixeira, that majority draw against Magomed Ankalaev for the vacant title in which Jan was taken down and controlled late. And, of course, the split decision loss in Alex Pereira's 205 debut 2 years ago. But Jan told Ariel Helwani in a sit-down 2 weeks ago that the shoulder issue started all the way back in the 2021 Israel Adesanya title defense at 205 pounds. So that's that entire run where he had legitimate trouble in some degree with those shoulders and was compromised. I did sit down with Jan Blachowicz this week on the Brian Campbell Experience, where I basically teed that up. I said, look, you've had shoulder problems going back to the Adesanya fight. How much did that play a role in the draw and the 2 defeats since then? Let's hear his response. And I know you're never one to make excuses. You're always a very honest fighter, and we love that about you. But when you look back at losing to Pereira or losing to
no excuse anyway. I don't like excuse. I never gonna be excused.
But did that
sick,
affect you back then? Did you have hurt?
I don't like talk about this. That was the shoulders was fucked up long time, and that's it. And finishing this, if you are sick and you use it after the fight, don't do that. Stay at home, recover. If you have, if you feel bad and it, that you've got an injury and you go to the fight, don't excuse after the fight that, that was bad because I have a broken toe or I have diarrhea. I don't care. So stay at home.
Let's hope not on the diarrhea. Wow. You don't want that in the cage.
That will be great, in the fight diarrhea.
Wow. Shout out to Justine Kish once again.
I like how every online conversation you have in MMA ends up with diarrhea.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Do you think any of that affected him? And is there an idea that he can be Henry Rowengartner sitting in the center field bleachers of Wrigley Field, Luke, and when his arm recovers from that surgery, he can, thank you. Rookie of the year. He can throw strikes to the plate from the bleachers. Are we going to see a turbocharged, bionic, legendary Polish power on Saturday that will leave you surprised?
Well, let me just say this. He's not using it as an excuse, which mad respect to Jan Blachowicz. I think we all really appreciate that. But in his defense, BC, if he had to get double fucking shoulder surgery, there is simply no question it affected him badly. There is no question in my mind, to the point where it's like, now, how could it have affected him if he was still able to fight? Well, the question is, what kind of range of motion did he have to mechanically cock back, to throw with full authority? Was he having to pull his punches because he just wasn't really able to trust the integrity of the shoulder in order to, dude, that can have major implications. Any kind of static holding you need to do, all of it. Dude, I remember when after I had shoulder surgery, it was 3 months later, I went for a run. 3 months, BC, 3 months later, and just the bouncing of the shoulders as I ran hurt. Just that. And I was like, to the point it hurt where I was like, oh, am I fucking, like, I can't mess up my surgery. I don't want to go back under the knife. Just that. So this is what I mean. Like, there's no question in my mind that messed him up. And I think obviously in terms of like what happens when they do these kinds of things is what they do is they just sew the shoulder joint even tighter so that it reduces your overall range of motion, but it secures the joint from any kind of subsequent injury. That's really what they do. But that can also have an effect, BC. If my shoulder doesn't have the same range of motion to operate, that tends to have cost. So this is what I mean. It's probably much more secure, and that confers some benefits, but you're going to be limited with range of motion, plus the time off. Plus, this is a surging opponent who likes to fight at range, who is going to be faster, BC. I think certainly even you would agree with that. Carlos Ulberg is going to be the quicker of the two.
And more handsome of the two. Like, no
well, I mean, that's just about 99% of guys at this point. But you understand my point. I love Jan Blachowicz. I think everybody likes Jan Blachowicz. I mean, he's very hard to dislike. But he's got an uphill climb here, and I don't think we should lose sight of that.
All right, let's go to the flip side here in Carlos Ulberg, who, like Jan, said a victory, like I said earlier, will automatically get him a title shot. I don't know if that's true in this division. I think it might make more sense for Jan, who has history with the two guys that we think will be rematching, recent history. Let's not forget that Blachowicz gave Pereira a very tough test in a split decision. But for Carlos Ulberg, this is his opportunity to show himself. I also sat down with him on the BCX and ultimately asked him what makes him different among the other title contenders at 205.
I bring to the table just a different look. That's what it is. It's just a different look that nobody's really seen before. And it opens doors for many other opportunities for the company of the UFC. So the prettiest face on the book, man. That's all it is. But well, that's the joke. But yeah, nah, man. It all comes down to just having a different style. When I get that title, it just brings a different style.
Well, speaking of pretty faces, we always joke, Carlos, on Morning Kombat that you probably have the best DMs after a win in terms of people wanting a piece of you, reaching out. Is modeling still in your portfolio these days?
I'm not going to count it out. I mean, I do. There are jobs that come my way, but I'm kind of putting that aside until I get what I want from the UFC, and then I'll look to get in that eventually later on in the future, and hope that I don't break my nose in too many ways, but. But I don't know. I could be a hand model or something. But who knows? But yeah, later on in the future we'll look at that.
Lukey, I would later ask him whether he gets job offers in his DMs. He said only hand jobs, so that does align with the hand modeling right there. All jokes aside, of course, he's got power. He's quick. He's 34, but we consider him young, youthful, obviously inexperienced compared to Jan. But he's the betting favorite coming in. If he gets this done, how does he do it?
You're right. It is 3 rounds. It's not 5. I think he can outpoint him. Now, Jan, one of the things that he's been really great at is very good about checking kicks. Yeah, and remember, he shut down Izzy, at 205. Like, that is a very, very impressive thing. And one of the ways he was able to do that was by shutting down the leg kicks, forcing him into boxing range. And he had much better boxing. Like, is that something he can do against Carlos Ulberg at this stage of his game? That's where I have a little bit of question. I think the speed is ultimately going to be a big problem for him. Now, that being said, the question is, what does Jan Blachowicz do? Does he lead or does he follow? And I have a feeling he's going to lead. And he's going to try and pressure Ulberg, because the more that Ulberg is on the move, the less he can plant and throw, particularly from the kicking department. And so, like, what does that do? But I just feel like I'm not that he'll have hesitancy to throw. I don't think that's right. I suspect he's totally committed to get the job done. But I have a feeling that ultimately some of the rust is going to play a role here, even though he's a very experienced fighter. As I mentioned, the speed, I think, is going to play a role, the hand speed, the explosive ability. And I just feel like Carlos Ulberg, he might have to scrape by. Like, when I say I agree with the odds makers about who ultimately will get their hand raised, I do. I actually think it'll be pretty close, though. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's going to run away with it. I just feel like, can he take 2 rounds from a guy he's quicker than, rangier than, more explosive than, who's been off for 2 years with double shoulder surgery, who's 42 years old? He should be able to do that, even though Blachowicz is very, very tricky and certainly has stout defense and hard to hurt.
Have we seen his chin truly chested. Excuse me for that
Who?
mumble jumble. I'm talking about Carlos Ulberg, who did go 3
Yeah, he got
rounds.
smoked.
So you think he can handle the legendary Polish power outside of getting cold cocked?
No, I think if Blachowicz lands on him clean, he's got.
Oh, you're referencing his debut loss with the UFC. The knockout.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, dude, if we're at a point in this fight where Blachowicz is landing on him clean, yeah, Carlos Ulberg's in a world of shit at that point. I don't misunderstand me, but it's just a question of, like, are we going to get to that point, or are we going to get to that point a little too late? You know what I mean? Like, oh, he figures it out by the 3rd round or something. I think that's kind of where my head is at a little bit on this.
If we're looking at a Final Four bracket, speaking of March Madness right now at 205 with Pereira Ankalaev rematching on one side and this fight on the other, it's like you could kind of argue, though, that it'd be a lot better for the UFC if Poatan won that rematch, Carlos Ulberg won this one, so we get a fresh matchup. Because do you think the UFC would even attempt to roll out a Magomed Ankalaev Jan Blachowicz rematch for the championship?
Not if they don't have to.
Yeah.
Not if they don't have to. If they don't have to, look what they're doing. They're putting an old guy against he's 34, but an old guy versus a relatively speaking young guy. That kind of tells you where their head is at a little bit on this one. But, old guys, especially with legendary Polish power, they die hard. We all know that. They die hard.
You're damn right they do. Luke, let's look at the rest of this card briefly here. A welterweight matchup that does have our attention is finally a returning Gunnar Nelson, no longer training in Iceland with Conor McGregor, by the way. He's a -118 favorite against the... Sorry. Yeah, he is a favorite, but it's a virtual pick'em fight against Kevin Holland. It surprised me there. He's -102 is Holland. So we're looking at basically a pick'em in this 3-round welterweight tilt. Is that more about the ability of that Gunnar Nelson shown over the years, or more about the inconsistency of Kevin Holland in your eyes?
I think it's more about Holland's inconsistency. This is better for Holland, right? He fought Delidze and had the rib injury. Then he fought RDR and he got smoked. And these were fights he should have never taken. He's back at 170. I think at 170, he has a completely different game, a completely different level of physicality. And, I think his back is up against the wall here, BC. It's like Donald Cerrone went on losing streaks, but they were closer to the end of his career. And even like he had one losing streak where I think he lost like 3 or 4 in a row. And then he rattled off like 3 wins in a row. He got right back to it. Like Kevin Holland needs to kind of try to do something closer to that. And you're getting an opponent who hasn't competed in fucking forever. Granted, he's dangerous, but, quite some time it's been, Kevin Holland is talented. He is very, very talented, but he fights suboptimally, either down to his opponent or in the wrong weight class all the time. And it's like, get in the right weight class and put in maximum effort into these fights, like, according to your best skill set, and see what happens. And I think when he does that, he does really well. Dude, this is a guy who knocked out fucking Joaquin Buckley. People forget that. Dude, Kevin Holland fucking knocked out Joaquin Buckley. Like, he's a good fighter. But if you're looking at these odds, it's because I think the odds makers are like,
he scored a KO off his back that time against Jacare? He's done some things.
Yeah, dude. Kevin Holland is a nasty dude when he wants to be. But I'd be very curious from a betting perspective where Bong Island Luke is on this one, because, it's hard to have confidence in Kevin Holland. And at the same time, Gunnar Nelson, I remember when he made a name for himself beating Jeff Monson at ADCC, but he's been off forever. So where are you at on this one, Bong Island?
So earlier, the odds have moved a lot. It is a pick 'em now, but earlier in the week, Kevin Holland was actually a pretty fat dog. I got him at +125.
Ooh.
You mentioned he's got the win over Joaquin Buckley. That was at 85, but Joaquin Buckley's a ranked welterweight right now. That is a really good win. He is 4-3 at welterweight. Those 3 losses all came to top 15 welterweights. Ooh. So I feel like you're getting Gunnar here, who hasn't fought in 2 years. Excuse me. And how about this? Gunnar Nelson has fought 5 times in Kevin Holland's entire 25-fight UFC career.
No way.
Yep. So Kevin Holland been way more active, literally fought 5 times the amount that Gunnar has in the last however many years that is.
Wow.
But I'm riding with Kevin Holland here. He is inconsistent. You got to take the value, though.
Yeah. Dude, again, it's like the same thing with Jan Blachowicz. Like, Jan Blachowicz's high end is higher than anything Ulberg has shown. but 2 years off is, or almost is a long time, dude. It's a long time.
So Nelson's 36. He's off almost 2 years to the day. He fought March 18th of 2023 against Brian Barberena. He submitted him. He fought a year earlier, taking a decision from Takashi Sato. He had a 3-year break before that. It had a loss in 2019 to both Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards. And then he was off for almost a full year before that. What is going on here, Luke?
These dudes are, I mean, partly it's it's like with Ryan Hall. It's, for example, like why has Ryan Hall been so inconsistent? Well, there's a lot of matchups he was offered that I know he didn't particularly want. And then he had a bunch of injuries and he wanted to get right with that. And then a lot of these guys, I'm not sure to what extent this affects Gunnar in Iceland, but in many other cases, these guys run gyms. You have to like life just kind of finds a way of getting in the way.
Yeah.
But they're not done. They are competitors. They want to get out there and win. And Gunnar Nelson's ground game, I mean, I don't need to tell anybody about this. It's phenomenal. It's just, golly, dude, 2 years off is a tough time to come back to even an inconsistent yet quite talented Kevin Holland.
Luke, Molly Meatball has lost 3 of her last 4. She is, of course, a big-time local favorite here at Women's Strawweight as she welcomes Alexia Tainara, who I know nothing about. Does this fight make you move at all?
Contender Series winner Tainara. I didn't see anything super impressive necessarily. Jungle fight veteran. I think it's probably something of a get-right fight for Molly, but we shall see.
F the Tories, by the way, as she would say. Luke, what else do you like on this card?
Man, there's a bunch of stuff I like on this card, if I do say so myself. Okay, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing his name because I'm terrible about it, but Jordan Vucenic against Chris Duncan. Dude, Vucenic has had went 1-1 with Paul Hughes, the second of which was an absolute amazing fight. And I know he had his UFC debut, Jordan did, on short notice, and, it didn't look necessarily like that awesome, but it was like crazy short notice in order to get there. This guy has been doing great things in the lightweight division over in Cage Warriors and in Europe. I love this fight. I think it's a great one. Nathaniel Wood, who has been somewhat inconsistent but still quite good, against Morgan Charrier. I'm sure I'm saying that last name not quite right. He's 20-10, but still seems to me like one of the brighter French talents that has emerged on the UFC scene. Jai Herbert's always kind of fun against Chris Padilla. That you can take that. Mick Parkin at heavyweight, 10-0 out of England. I don't really believe a lot in heavyweight prospects, and I don't know if he's going to win this one against Marcin Tybura, but Mick Parkin has looked pretty good to me of late, actually. I love his spark. He's got some decent boxing. This is an interesting contest, and dude, if we can get a guy at heavyweight who can do exciting things and move through the contendership queue, I'm all in favor of that. And then last but not least for me, Guram Kutateladze, who I really thought was going to be one of these guys at lightweight who was going to be, the new class to replace the old one. It didn't quite happen that way, but he's still very, very talented, taking on, I don't know how to say this guy's first name, but Fernandez out of Brazil, who's, a decent to good fighter. But Kutateladze, I've had a high opinion of in terms of like what I think his game could be. So, there's other ones you can pick up and down here, but just those alone are pretty good for me.
Yeah, indeed. And by the way, Mick Parkin last year had a first round knockout finish there in his last fight. Who was that against? I'm sorry, I just dropped off the side of my brain and didn't see it there. Also, before that, he beat Muhammad Usman by decision. Lucas Bresky. So this is, this is him trying to step up to that next level, to that Mendoza line that people like Tabura and Spivak represent. Long Island Luke, you had a hot on for this undercard. Can we get a bet to look for, a strawweight to watch? What do you got for me?
Not a strawweight to watch. Bet to look for. You guys didn't ask my opinion when we were going over it, but Jan Blachowicz, man, I got him at plus 220s, plus 245 right now. He's only lost to champions in the last 6 years. Ulberg hasn't even fought anyone in the top 8. Blachowicz's last 7 fights been against the top 8. So, this is a big step up.
I'm taking the Polish power too.
Me too.
I mean,
let's go.
Let's go.
I do want to give a shout out to Nathan Fletcher versus Callan Loughran. That is the battle of the Liverpool gyms, next gen, going against Team Kyoban. I don't know. We're Darren Till trains. Either way,
isn't Callan? Isn't he Irish?
He's Irish, but he trains in Liverpool. Yeah. So that's a pick 'em too. That fight. Looking forward to it. You mentioned Jai Herbert versus Taco Padilla. That was Jai was a big favorite in that. Now it's a pick 'em. So I'm pretty excited to see that. Padilla did cash as like a plus 220 dog last time he fought. A lot of fights to look forward to here, man. I'm
Yeah, a
looking
lot of bong hits to take on the Main Card Minute
That's
live
true.
show on
Right.
Saturday, so check that out in the afternoon. Conor McGregor's also running for president, Luke. I'll throw that in as a footnote there in Ireland.
Yes,
There you go.
lucky for the Irish.
All right, let's go to topic number 2. And it all stems from an Ariel Helwani report about a week and a half ago, but it really became a topic this week. The idea that Jon Jones, who we all hope waiting, will sign a heavyweight unification against Tom Aspinall at some point this year. The report from Helwani was twofold. One, that Jones is demanding a 6-month training camp to prepare for Aspinall. And two, that he's also demanding that Deontay Wilder level money that we used to talk about, that around $30 million, according to Helwani. Luke, at this moment, how confident are you that we see this fight at all? Because this could just be public negotiation, right? This could just be that.
Okay. I made a video about this on my YouTube channel, and then I had a discussion about it on the live chat yesterday as well. And there was a viewer who brought up a great point into something that I thought really kind of crystallized it for me. We are now, I think, just 3 or 4 days away, maybe less. We're basically on the precipice of Tom Aspinall being 500 days as interim champion. And
we have a graphic for that, Luke.
Let's see the graphic, because this was several days ago. I'm not sure when this was put up. So, and then the notion is on April 29th, he'll have 535, which will make him either tied for first and then he'll eventually overtake. He's going to overtake Renan Barão essentially as the longest reigning interim champion. And the point that the viewer brought up to me, quite correct, is that, like, dude, if you're Jon Jones, you have had to have known for quite some time that you had a showdown with this guy. Like, you had to have known. There's no mystery about it. It wasn't like he was like the unofficial number 1 contender, right? He's been the guy with the belt, and now to a point where it will be the record in the history of the organization in terms of how long he'll have it. Like, there's no plausible deniability that there was anything else. Yeah, I know he tried to shoehorn in the Poatan fight and whatnot, but, like, you had to have known. The claim that you now need an additional 6 months. Now, BC, my thought was, okay, if he's asking for more money and it's public negotiation, like, what's the line between negotiation and then ducking? Sometimes it can be very thin. It can be very, very thin between them, and we understand that. Or it could also be the case that he's asking for 6 months, not that he needs an actual 6 months, but that, like, he's got, like, family stuff or whatever. And then
people think cycling, Luke, cycling. And I don't mean Tour de France, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's any number of, well, you do mean Tour de France, just the Lance Armstrong version,
sorry.
You know what I
mean? Yeah.
But like, there's all of these theories, and, like, all of them we know. I'm just going to say this, dude, I am trying to not be negative about this. And you're asking me, like, what my level of, what likelihood is there? I'm still going to remain 50-50 on this one, perhaps even irrationally. It's the most important fight I think the UFC can make this year. It's one of the most important fights the UFC can make for its entire heavyweight history. I absolutely believe that. And it's one of the most lucrative fights of any weight class that they could make. So for these reasons, there's a lot of belief in why it should take place. At the same time, it's like Jon says he doesn't want to fight him a long time ago, tries to shoehorn in the Poatan fight, is asking for 6 months for reasons we can't even fucking fathom what they would even be at this point. And he's asking for money. Not that I think that money is unreasonable, but, part of the reason why pay-per-view buys are down is because the UFC has had stars that they could have accessed and used, and those stars chose to sit on the sidelines because they weren't getting enough money, or at least they didn't feel like they were being adequately compensated. Like, we're already in this position because when the UFC has to choose between their business model and then breaking out the piggy bank a little bit to break that model to make something happen, they just don't. They don't. There's no evidence that they do that. And so hope springs eternal, I suppose, BC. I'm really not going to sit here and declare it won't happen, because maybe in the end, Jon just budges and then all this goes away and then we don't really have to worry about it. But, like, while I recognize, as aforementioned, that the line between ducking and negotiating can be quite thin, Is there any evidence, is what I would ask. Is there any evidence that you can look at that Jon wants this fight? He might take this fight in the end, or he might be compensated to such a degree, BC, that he relents to his objections. But all of the available evidence to me suggests he just doesn't fucking want it. And I just think we have to come to terms with that.
I mean, it a little, ironic or coincidental because I'm also from Connecticut, but all I have right now is apathy for this situation. I just kind of when we were doing the Connor Chandler bit, and we're just sort of like, we get to a point where like, I don't care anymore. Make a decision, shit or get off the pod. I mean, when I heard this report, I tweeted and got a lot of pushback, by the way, but tweeted like 6 months. You've had 6 years to prepare for this fight, or whoever was in this spot across from you.
Wait a second. Let me back up. What were the objections?
The objections were that this is obviously public negotiation, and that if anyone deserves this money, it is Jon.
Yes.
And I believe in the latter, but it was hard for me not to go. You took 3 years off to rebuild your body, hired Richard Schaefer, and try to get this money. You couldn't. It allowed you to duck Ngannou. Then the UFC conspires with you to just drag this out to unthinkable levels after his injury post-Gane fight, allowing Stipe's old ass to wait another year. And now you're just stunting on Aspinall's career. You know who else didn't like this news? A former Jon Jones opponent, Chael Sonnen, the bad guy. Let's listen.
It's been 4.5 months since that fight. Did he not train with Aspinall in mind? Did he not full well know the undefeated champion, or rather undisputed champion, was going to take on the interim champion? What do you mean you need 6 months? 6 months from when? 6 months starting when? Dare do I guess? You mean from right now, don't you? Anything that I am saying aside from 6 months from now is silly, as a matter of fact, isn't it? You wouldn't have even brought it up unless you meant from now. So of course it's from now. That's very interesting to me.
So 6 months, Luke, would put us in September. Obviously, there's going to be that November New York City MSG card. That could be a perfect landing spot. I get the problem I have with leaning on the money side of it for Jon is, well, A, the time it's taking. It's embarrassing. It's allowing him to say all these comments that make you believe he's not the guy we thought he was, and he doesn't want this fight at all. But beyond that, it's like, who are you at the end of the day? Like, if you were the person that says fighting Aspinall means nothing to me, then you should have left the title in the ring when you beat Stipe and walked off, okay? And over the years, we would stop talking about the Aspinall part of this, and we would probably only be talking about Jon's greatness. But he's also dragged this out, so he's also at fault. I kind of just wanted to go away. Luckily, Aspinall is keeping of sound mind. Here's a little snippet of his talk on one-on-one MMA.
There's nowhere to go for Jon. He either has to fight me or retire now. And if he does retire, everyone knows that he will have been avoiding me. So there literally isn't another fight for Jon at the moment. So it works out pretty good.
It is an indictment on the UFC too. Like, get your shit together. Strip him. If he doesn't want it, strip him.
Or I mean, listen, I don't think Jon is like, an awesome person, but like, pay him. Fucking pay him. Like, just pay him. Oh, we don't want to break our model. We want to keep athlete costs at 20% or below. People, if anybody is sick of the fighter pay conversation, believe me, it is me. But like, guys, maybe he is negotiating for more money. And in the end, if he gets all, 30 million apparently is what he's asking for. If he ends up getting it, God bless him. I don't think 30 million is, even if it ends up being 20, 25, that to me is like a great payday. He's more than earned. I don't have any problem with it. But like, this is what I mean. John Nash on his podcast was talking about this. So the UFC from ESPN gets paid $20 million per pay-per-view, and then ESPN takes whatever they can get, from the buys, right? So they just pay them $20 million, and then they get to keep the receipts on the buys. And the thing is, it's like, pay-per-view buys are just down tremendously, and so like the average pay-per-view return is not that high. But apparently, according to him, the UFC is willing to look the other way when, like, hey, Conor would come in and he'd fight Cerrone and do 1 million buys. They more than make up for it for like half of the year with something just like that. So they'd be totally cool with it in those scenarios. And apparently, Jon Jones versus Stipe sold pretty well. I don't know exactly what the number was, but I guess everyone was happy with it in the end. But this is the point I'm trying to make. It's like, if they would just come up off their pockets a little bit to pay these guys outside of what their business model that lets them keep 80 cents of every dollar that is generated, you could have these fucking fights. You could have them. They're not like so difficult to make. They're just difficult to make if you're going to pinch pennies. And again, they still might do it. I'm not saying that it won't happen, but like all of this difficulty, like if Jon is saying 30 million, fucking call his bluff. Call his bluff and see what happens.
Or
like,
make a phone call. Uncle Turkey, line 1. Seriously, you're in bed with the man. Call him. He bailed you out on the Sphere. Let's go. I don't care if the fight's in Saudi. Let's go. Let's make the fight. End of discussion, though, Luke. We got to keep going here. Let's go to topic number 3. The very controversial boxing superstar Ryan Garcia has cleared, of course, his 1 year, or will be clearing his 1 year suspension in April next month. And of course, is prepping for his May 2nd Times Square return against Rolando Romero. But Garcia kind of came clean for the first time about that very tumultuous 2024 when he sat down last week with Ak and Barack of the new podcast Ring Champs, which of course is on the All the Smoke Fight Network. And you can check out the full episode of this on the Ring Champs YouTube page. Garcia revealed really in-depth detail about the drugs and alcohol that led to a lot of the crazy erratic behavior leading up to the Haney victory. And of course, after it, when he was stripped, or when he was, when the win got taken away due to the positive test due to Osterin, and it became a no contest. Let's listen into Ryan talking about how much the drugs and alcohol did really put him on the verge of throwing it all the way last year.
I'm surprised I'm here right now.
Really?
Yeah. I was drinking every day, every single day.
I feel like the people around
even the day of the fight. Of the fight, I just got so involved in just trying to cope with whatever was going on inside. And like I said, I've been struggling mentally for years, and it just wouldn't stop for me. So
what was the turning point?
Turning point is to realize, like, damn, bro, I'm fucking my life up, you know? And getting arrested was a big part of it. Almost losing my kids was a huge part of it.
Can you talk about what happened that day?
I decided to take a bunch of shrooms, and something I was doing already, but this time I took too many. And I kind of just lost it, bro. I can't really say anything else. I mean,
they were saying that you trashed the room.
Oh yeah. I mean, I ended up breaking everything in the room. I really don't remember, bro. I was drunk and fucked up to the.
But to his point, who were you with that day?
The same people you always see me with, bro.
And see, this is the thing, though. I'm sure those people love you, but that doesn't mean that they know what's good for you and your career and your life and your spirit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's all. I'm sure the people love you. I ain't trying to knock them. I'm just trying to say, do you think you should have been around that kind of people that's comfortable with you getting drunk?
Right. No, I respect that. And no, man, I feel I just didn't have those type of people.
You can download the full episode on wherever you find podcasts, along with, of course, the Ring Champs YouTube channel. Luke, I'm not looking for those
guys. Shouts to Ak and Barack. I like those guys.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for you to provide sympathy to a guy who just did so much bullshit last year. The conspiracies, the racism, the challenging all these fighters, talking bad about their wives. Like, it was nonstop. It was out of control. He did touch on 2 moments that played a big part: the cancer diagnosis for his mom in June, and the divorce he had in January of last year that came just a few weeks after the birth of his son, Henry. So, Luke, I want you to kind of just gauge what you're seeing here. We've also seen a more relaxed Ryan in the 2 press conferences for this Romero fight. Do you think he can put this behind him and still access the highest points of his career if he is clean and sober and in the right state with the right help around him moving forward?
Well, you know, let he who has, I mean, I know I've tortured this phrase, but it really is quite true. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And more to the point, anybody who has been in the throes and the control of, illicit substances, drugs or alcohol, knows that not only do you end up hurting yourself a lot, but you hurt a lot of people around you. And it seems like that has dawned on him, at least in some of the early and in very important stages. I mean, BC, you would agree, he just looks a lot better here. He certainly sounds a lot better here. He was so manic before, right? Where he was just firing off words and sentences. Everything seems down to earth in a much better way. So let me just say, I commend him on the progress. I commend him on the sobriety. I commend him on, I think also, BC, wasn't it part of this that he was potentially losing custody of his children? Also,
with the arrest. So he caused $15,000 of damage at the Waldorf in Beverly Hills. And by the way, that was fueled at that moment by his mom's cancer diagnosis. And it led to when he was arrested, I think there was an incident with his ex-wife as well that led to him being on the verge of losing visitation with his 3 kids. So if that was a turning point that sobered him up, you know, for the human side of it, you certainly hope he can stay. But for the boxing side, we never thought he can be as dangerous, nasty, and everything as he was in that Haney fight. I know that there were.
Well, can we hold on? I mean, remember, granted, you know, we've all had some bad predictions. Me saying Haney was going to tune him up like a guitar is an all-time bad one. But I will say in my defense, you know, not that there was any, like, it was a bad prediction, but the guy is admitting he was drinking like the day of the fight. Under normal circumstances, that derails 99% of pro boxers. So it wasn't like we were crazy for being like, this might not be bad. I just want to say one more thing about the personal side. You know, again, anybody who's been in the throes, and I've been in the throes, not so much of drugs, but certainly, you know, alcoholism. And it's terrible. It does terrible things to you. It does terrible things to your relationships. It does terrible things to your professional prospects. It's terrible. It takes a long time to get right. I will say, BC, I had to block him on social media because there was a point in his life where he was just spewing the most hateful shit about everybody and anybody. You mentioned people's wives, people's religions, people's skin colors, people's, sexual orientation, anything he could find to just fucking blast away at. I couldn't take it anymore. I think he's actually got a long road to recovery to really get to a point where he can fully understand like some of the damage that he caused to himself and like the people, his loved ones. But I will say he looks a lot better. He sounds way better. And I do believe in second chances. I do believe in redemption. He seems like he's on a good path, but I still think he's got a long way to go. Now you're asking about the boxing side of things. BC, this is the crazy part. If that guy was drinking and in the clubs before fighting Devin Haney and then even drinking the day of the fight, and does that. Now, granted, there was the weight issue and there was the Osterine stuff. It's a much more complicated whole, but it's quite obvious he is very skilled and it's very talented. I think if he's really getting right, he can rescue himself, BC, and you can't make up for lost time, but he's still got a lot of good time in front of him to make effective, great use of a professional boxing career.
Dude, I think he's still untapped at his full potential. We saw flashes early on. You know, I think even when you look back at the Tank fight, you have to look at that through the lens of the rehydration clause. And he did make big mistakes in that Tank fight. And once Tank humbled him with the knockdown, he wasn't the same. He was reckless at times. But I think if they eventually do a rematch, that could look differently. He's got a big plan ahead of him. If he beats Romero, he's already signed the deal to fight Haney. He said the third fight after that would be either Teofimo or Boots Ennis. So he's the one who's coming out and saying, I want to fight. I want to be the first one to fight every one of the 4 kings, princes, whatever you want to talk about him. He wants the smoke. And also, he's getting a really big bag for this Romero fight. Let's hear him talk about that.
Is this fight going to be the most money you've ever made? What is the money looking like? Mind your business. I'm always going to bring up money. I'm just watching what you're saying.
You know what I'll do? I'll hire or lower. I'll do higher or lower.
Okay. So let's say for this particular fight against Rolly, would you be making more than 10 million? More than 15? Damn. 20?
He understands this generation on how to promote fights. You know, you should be seeing what he's bringing to the table. He's bringing, you know, Mr. Beast into play. He's bringing KSI, all these guys that are huge names and that are going to, you know, amplify the promotion. He's going to move the needle. You're going to see there is a method to what he's doing. And I think he's the new guy on the block, but I think he's going to take over. And if you're hating on it, it's weird because he's bringing all the best fights possible. He's making sure that we fight, me and Devin. If you have an excuses, it's not about money.
It's not about money anymore.
And he's exposing people because it ain't about money when it comes to...
Usually outprice themselves out. Now there's
So if they deny a fight, it ain't about money, for sure.
For this particular fight against Rolly, would you be making more than 20? Around there.
Around there.
All right. Shit. All right, I got it.
Too bad for Jon Jones when he hears things like that, Luke. There's no doubt about it. I wanted to bring up one thing real quick to you. I have clowned Ryan's reaction on this podcast, by the way, the one with Doc and Brock on Ring Champs, because he's still going on the heavy conspiracy theory that this test was a joint plant, the Osterine test that he failed, by both the Haney family and the New York State Athletic Commission. And he's citing the fact that he tested clean before and after on all the other tests. He's also citing the fact that Haney's brother put out on social media, like, I think before the fight, predicting that Ryan was going to pop. There's other, and I thought that was sort of more him acting crazy. A lot of fans came back at me on my personal channel and were like, read the details on that. There does seem to be sketchy circumstances surrounding it. I don't know, Luke. It sounds far-fetched to me, but
sketchy circumstances like what?
Like he believes the Haney family had knowledge ahead of time that this was going to happen and it was a plant and all that. I mean, that could be a lawsuit in return coming up. Oh, wait, he's already getting sued by the Haney
I'm going to
family.
guess that the guy who wasn't really in control with substance abuse problems probably was not artificially poisoned. I'm going to guess that.
Yeah, it's interesting.
There's this weird cult of fans that he has that are desperate to like if he does something great, that they are desperate to like credit him for it, and when he does something bad, they have any number of excuses. He was poisoned, or he was treated poorly, or this is unfair, or even if he did it to himself, there's some other kind of extenuating circumstance. He's got this cult of enablers around him as fans and observers who simply are like guys. Ryan Garcia has agency. He has agency over his own decisions. He has agency over his own life, and you can hold him to account for doing that. It's really not that difficult to understand.
Yeah. Well, 20 million is a lot of money, so good luck to Ryan. That is big time stuff. And look, if you're ready to win some real money this March Madness, this March Mania that we're having with this tournament, and if you're struggling to choose which team will pull off an upset, how about this? Forget about the teams. All you need to focus on are player stats to rack up big cash prizes with DraftKings Pick 6. And when it comes to massive payouts, get this, DraftKings is going to dunk all over the competition. Ain't that right, LT?
That's right. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri and California and Texas and Georgia and more. You can track your picks for a shot to win huge cash prizes. It's really as simple as that. And you can turn your March Mania, BC. I know March Madness started yesterday. Of course, I did a bracket, by the way, with Tukester. And you can turn that knowledge into cash today. New players, you're going to get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just a $5 entry. Let me say that one more time. New players get 50 bones in Pick 6 credits like that with just a $5 entry. Get on it, folks. Get on it.
Yeah, come on. Here's what we need you to do. Download that DraftKings Pick 6 app right now. Use our code COMBAT with a K. Yes, COMBAT with a K for new customers to get what Luke just said. Play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown, of course, is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Let's get into topic number 4. And it seems to be a little reveal, or is it, about the future of TKO boxing, the partnership, of course, between Turki Al-Sheikh, Saudi Arabia, Dana White, UFC, Nick Khan, Ari Emanuel, everything going on that side. What we saw was Boxing Scene's Lance Pugmire talking to multiple fighter managers who have received, according to Lance, contract offers stating certain financial structure for what this TKO league will look like. They're already going after young fighters to build for the future. Let's show a tweet showing this potential pay scale here. Our friend Marcos Villegas from Fight Hub. The contract stipulates that purses will be increased based on the fighter's ability to crack the top 10 of the company and climb the rankings. You can see there $20,000 for a 10-round bout by an unranked fighter, escalating the higher you go in rankings and the higher that you come to that title. $375,000 when challenging for a company championship, $750,000 when defending a company championship. And there's a lot of other elements to this that we've seen within it. One is, Luke, that it seems if you sign with them, you're under the books for 3 fights. No word yet if there's other sort of UFC style contract kick-ins that allow TKO to keep you longer. But I wanted to get your reaction mostly because it seems so polarizing. A lot of boxing people read this boxing scene story and said, oh, this will never work. See, they're bringing UFC payouts. Just the same, a lot of people with experience in this area were like, hold on, this does bring a return to the middle class for fighters that can't normally reach this level of payout. It might cap you on the highest end, but what was your takeaway on this?
I'm a little bit closer to the latter. I mean, it's very, okay. So first of all, like, they're giving the game away here a little bit. Like, what do they plan to do? Well, you see what they plan to do. They plan to offer pay that allows the house, the promoter, to make more on an event than the current structure allows. And if you read the court documents in the UFC antitrust suit, there were, there were statements from Lou DiBella, there were receipts from Golden Boy Promotions, there were, testimonials from Bob Arum, where they all kind of explained 70% or higher, including up to 80%, going to the boxer is quite normal in that industry. And they explain sort of the reasons why they want to invert this, or to bare minimum kind of change it. And, I don't think that's much of a surprise. I think that part is kind of obvious. So to that extent, I don't have much to say. The question is, like, who ends up taking advantage of these? Also, by the way, for the company championship kind of tells you that they're going to stay in compliance with the Ali Act, because they're not trying to form like a real title. They're just they're going to have a ceremonial title, and then they're going to kind of treat it like a real title. But you're asking about the pay and who will apply to. If you look at pay in boxing, now this is somewhat disputed depending on how you measure it, but there are ways to look at it based on boxing receipts, where in the curve of like all the different pay slots and who makes what, the vast majority of the time boxers make more than MMA, including at the low end and especially at the high end. People think at the low end MMA fighters make more. That's really not the case. But to the point that you raised, BC, there kind of is a bit of a middle class there where they can make more. And so if this is geared towards that, it could work out in quite a lucrative way. But what I would say is, if they're bringing UFC pay, and these are 3-fight deals ostensibly, my hunch is that they want to add UFC style contract provisions, like if you get injured, and granted that's not as relevant in boxing, but it does tend to happen. It extends your career from the day you sign versus the day of your first fight, that difference being an extension. If you end up becoming a champion, are there other championship clauses? Or what other things are they going to do to tack onto that make it a longer deal? Because, by the way, UFC deals, when they're offered, often are just 3-fight deals. I've seen UFC contracts. That's very, very normal. Not all of them are that way, obviously, but as like a sort of like a standard thing, they do that too. So I can see the argument that this could service a particular kind of boxer, and it's a bit of a middler, that could have something of a bump in pay. BC, when the UFC got rid of individual sponsors and they picked up the Reebok deal, it didn't affect every MMA, or I should say every UFC fighter the same. At the high end, it was really bad for those guys. At the very low end, it was really good for those guys because they weren't getting any sponsorship, and such that they didn't have to chase these guys down. And in the middle, it kind of depended on your circumstances. Seems to me this will be something like that. I just want to add, the real kicker here are any of the additional things that lengthen the terms of the deal. That's what we have to see.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we still don't know the full package. In fact, it must be noted, Turki Al-Sheikh, who is him and his country are, of course, funding the TKO League. He owns Ring Magazine, and on the Ring Twitter account, he did refute this report. He also took it a little bit further here, showing a picture of Gary Jonas, who is the owner of the Pro Box promotion, which purchased Boxing Scene from Paramount over the past 2 years. And Turki says this article is not factually accurate. I think Gary Jonas should focus on his business in Florida because he doesn't want the FTC to call him again. I'm wondering what the structure of his business model with the rehab facilities in boxing are. So, end quote. There you've got a very aggressive use of the supposedly independent editorially Ring Magazine account. Now, Jonas earlier that day did give an interview that was very negative and aggressive against Turki in terms of what his intentions and whether he will succeed in this. But Luke, I know that TKO seems to be pushing back to how we reacted to their initial announcement. You saw Turkey come on Twitter and give that long spaces thing where he kind of said, no, we're not looking to push everybody out, drive everybody out of business. I don't know what to think anymore. I feel like every other day, I feel like they've got all the connections and money to take over, but there is a lot of old guard that are going to dig their heels and probably try to prevent this from happening.
Did you see Samson Lukowicz talk about this with the Bivol thing? Let's see. I mean, it's you're raising literally all the right questions, but we're so far out. They came out guns blazing, and the response was like, "Ew." And now they're like, no. Like, we're going to do this and we're going to be this, but we're going to do that. You know what I mean? They've softened the tone in a few different directions. And again, to the point Dana White raised, Turkey's got 18 months left on some of these. Like, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while.
It will be. It will be. We'll continue to follow this development. Let's go to topic number 5. There is a monster event this Sunday from the Saitama Super Arena in Japan. Yes, it is One Championship 172. And Luke, to access this card this weekend, it is available on global pay-per-view on watch.onefc.com, not the normal Prime Video there. This is a super card that's going to mix, of course, the different combat styles that One likes to present. But in that main event, Takeru Sagawa, the former 3-division K1 champion, will take on former One Championship flyweight Muay Thai champion Rod Tang in a 5-round flyweight kickboxing match. Luke, set us up here. There's a lot to love about this matchup.
Before we even get to, we're going to talk to Timothy Wheaton here in just a second from Low Kick MMA. But BC, one thing I want to point out on this card, there are, I believe there are, how many fights? There are, don't say anything yet. There are 14 fights. 14 fights on this card. 1, 2, 3 of them are MMA. Only 3 MMA fights. Now, I was talking about this with Long Island Luke before the show. I don't mind this at all. I don't mind this even a little bit. Like, of course, it's going to be great to have more big leagues or bigger promotions doing MMA, and there is some of that. And by the way, if you're asking which ones they are, there's one on the prelim card that's really not that interesting. But Shinya Aoki taking on Edward Foliang. This is kind of like a fun fight. Foliang was something of a Filipino pioneer. This will be a 170 fight. And then the one that's much more interesting is for the vacant bantamweight championship between Adriano Moraes, who had obviously those interesting fights with DJ, former champion himself, taking on Yuya Wakamatsu. So that's actually a pretty fun contest there as well.
Yeah, rematch for the
it's a rematch. Yes, exactly. So there's some even the MMA they have on there is actually reasonably respectable, especially for the title level. But really, the star of the show obviously is all the kickboxing. They got Takeru versus Roteng in the main. Taiwan Chai taking on Masaki Noiri. I'm sure I'm saying his name wrong. And then Superlek is also on this card as well. Superlek obviously had an amazing fight with Takeru previously. So there's a bunch of really interesting things happening on it. But BC, it does appear to me 2 things worth observing. One, this is clearly an organization that is just moving into more of an Muay Thai kickboxing direction, even if it's 4-ounce Muay Thai. And second of all, this was brought up to me by Timothy as well. Have you noticed for a pay-per-view event where they've got literally this Takeru versus Roteng fight has been years in the making, Chatri has been very quiet. Have you noticed that? Chatri has done a little bit of media for it, but not much.
He's got to be figuring out the next season of the One Championship Apprentice. There's a lot of producing that needs to be done for that. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. But the reason that was given to me was previously, Chatri had said, well, Thai fighters are just Thai kickboxers and Muay Thai fighters are better than Japanese kickboxers. And, this was at a time when he was trying to sign Japanese talent and then curry favor with the Japanese market. And my understanding was it wasn't like what Chatri said was necessarily factually inaccurate, somewhat overstated, but factually inaccurate, but just really tone deaf for a legion of fighters and a market that you need, frankly, especially if you're going to go in a kickboxing direction where, Japanese kickboxing is obviously not what it once was, but still is an important market, So what's interesting about that, he's kind of taken a bit of a back seat, and they're letting other factors and other kind of influences promote this fight. So really interesting what's happening with One. And as I said to Long Island Luke, I don't care what direction they go. If you put on banger fights and you've got something that you can do sustainably over time, go do that. You don't need to do MMA. Like, again, I'm not saying I don't want MMA. I'm just saying I want them to do something that will enable them to thrive. That's what I want them to do. And it seems like this is it. Now, to set this up, BC, we did speak to Timothy Wheaton earlier this week to give you guys a preview. Because listen, as much as I love kickboxing and BC2, we don't know shit about it. All right. Can we just be honest about that? We know fuck all about kickboxing. It's not our wheelhouse at all. I feel like I know a fair bit about MMA. BC knows a fair bit about boxing and, kind of a little bit in between the two of us there, but we don't know much about kickboxing. So we said, we got to call in reinforcements. Well, Timothy Wheaton has you covered. Guys, Takeru versus Rodtang is fucking guaranteed barn burning excitement. But what is the relevancy? How do they match up? Here's my conversation with Tim Wheaton. Tim, let's get to it. Why is Takeru versus Rodtang such a big fight in kickboxing?
Man, I am so excited for this fight. We have been waiting years to get this matchup. And the way that I compare it to MMA or boxing is that these are Cold War rivals. They are the best from one organization versus the best from another organization, but they could never meet. Contract disputes, TV deals, all that sort of stuff going on. But finally, after years of waiting, we finally get the fight we want. We get the Cold War rivals, the best of Muay Thai and one championship, facing the best of K1 and kickboxing. I am so excited for this matchup, that these two will finally get in the ring. We had injuries. We had so many blocks coming in the way, but we finally made it, Luke Thomas. We've made it, bro.
Does it matter that there's no title on the line?
No, not at all here. This is like the way that I compare it to MMA very accurately would be Wanderlei Silva and Chuck Liddell. Now, when they met, eventually there was no title on the line, but it didn't diminish how exciting and important that fight was in MMA history. This fight is in a very similar vein of there may not be a title on the line, but the title doesn't tell the full story. The records are the more important part. The names are the far more important part in this fight. And it's a 5-round super fight anyway, so I'm pumped for it.
Does this fight being in Japan, obviously that gives Takeru some kind of support. To what extent does that matter in terms of how it could influence the fight or the judges or anything else?
I've wondered the same thing as well. I think everyone has that home crowd advantage. That when you go to Brazil, they're always going to, select the Brazilians. When you go to Japan, they're always going to select the Japanese people. I think him being surrounded by his home audience there in Tokyo, I think that's really going to benefit Takeru's attitude. When it comes to officiating and judging, I don't think it's going to make a massive difference there. But Takeru's a very emotional fighter. He's a guy who listens to the audience. When they're not cheering, he's slowing down. When they are cheering, he is speeding up. So he's a very emotional fighter. And I think for that factor, being in Japan is going to be very important for Mr. Takeru.
Takeru's style could be described as what?
Dude, this guy, oh my God, he's one of those guys that you think, I don't even like combat sports. Go and watch Takeru fight and you will immediately change your mind. This guy is a forward pressure brawler. He is looking to take his opponent's head off with a flurry of strikes. It's honestly just his leg kicks and body kicks are in the way of him throwing a tornado of punches. And Rodtang is a fighter who's an expert at getting to where he wants to be. He wants to get to the inside and throw combination punches, and he will use head movement and parries to get to that position. Whereas Takeru loves to use his face to block punches and get in the positions that he wants to be. So he's willing to take a flurry of punches to land 4 or 5 punches of his own. And man, this is why, and you guys know Rodtang real well. This whirlwind of a puncher against another flurry fighter. Oh, sign me up. This is why we're here. This is why we do this sport.
By the way, what kind of gloves are they using? And depending on what your answer is, does that favor either fighter?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question here. So coming into the fight, Takeru had said that I'm willing to fight Rodtang in Muay Thai. I'm willing to fight Takeru I'm willing to fight Rodtang under any rule set. I simply do not care. I want to fight Rodtang. And he's always made it clear that that's his intention. So if they wanted small gloves, they could have done small gloves. If they wanted to fight under Muay Thai rules, they could have. For whatever reason, they chose to do it under K1 kickboxing standard rules. So we will be in the big gloves in this matchup. And honestly, I think that favors probably Rodtang a little bit because he does cover up a lot more to defend himself against punches. Whereas Takeru is a guy who will just put his hands down by his waist, wait for you to finish your little combination, and then throw back in return. So I actually think a lot of things in this matchup favor Rodtang, to be honest with you.
What's interesting is I heard Takeru say this could be his last fight. I know he's only 33. Does he have a lot of miles on him? How would you compare the wear and tear on him to the wear and tear on Rodtang?
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of the X factor for both men in this fight, because if you remember a few years ago, Takeru had fought the phenom, Tenshin Nasukawa, lost to him. He relinquished his 3 K1 titles, and he said, all I want to do now is fight Rodtang, and then I'm pretty much done. He went and won a title in Paris. Then he took the fight against Superlek and the other guy. Now he's going to fight Rodtang, and I think this is going to be it for him. I do think this is his final fight. And I think the miles on him are not just from fighting. When I compared him to Chuck Liddell and Wanderlei Silva, it's also because of the way he trains. He is a guy who overtrains. He is getting into full-on gym wars routinely. So I think he's a guy who overtrains and it maybe has a little bit more damage. And if you remember, a good MMA comparison is Dan Henderson, where he was a guy who had a full range of tools, but then by the end of his career, he was just throwing the overhand. So rather than having all the setups to the overhand, he just fell in love with that one thing. And I feel like Takeru was in that same boat where he's not doing his step-in leg kicks as much as he used to get to the flurries. He's just going for the flurries. Now, Rodtang is not overtrained. Him coming in has the opposite problem, where he actually hasn't been super active in the gym for the last couple of years. He got married, and he's like, yeah, that's taking up all my time. I have a child on the way. He even said in an interview for one of his past title defenses that he only trained 2 days. Like, that's it. Like, not 2 days before the fight, just 2 days overall. So you got one guy whose motivation for training is iffy versus another guy who is way the fuck overtrained.
Who does one want to win?
Matt, you know who one wants to win. They want Rodtang. That is their golden goose. And for good reason. He's absolutely awesome. Like, you put his highlights out, is going viral consistently. He's going to be punching himself in the highlight reel. One championship, absolutely wants Rodtang to win. And you notice, maybe that's an off-air conversation. Never mind.
What do you expect in terms of what the fight will look like early and then down the stretch?
Takeru, oddly enough, I think he likes to pretend that he's a fast starter, so he runs right at his opponent, but he needs to get knocked down for him to really get his head in the game. He needs to get slapped up a little bit to get things going. And that's an interesting fold of his career consistently, is that he hasn't been this world beater who looks flawless and no one ever touches him, a la, a Cain Velasquez or someone like that. He actually struggles in almost every fight and then comes back. So he's willing to take a few punches, wake himself up, and then in the later rounds, mid rounds 2 and 3, he's very, very strong. So I think he's actually going to get dropped in round 1. It's just a matter of if he has the willpower and stamina to come back. Now, he's never lost by knockout in his career, but I mean, Rodtang's a different beast. And there's a lot of pressure going into this fight. This is the oldest he's ever been. So I think it's going to be, an absolute banger here.
In the case of what can I saw Takeru say the winner of this is the best striker in the world. And obviously that's a promotional kind of title. Yeah. But I guess I would ask, what can the winner claim from this victory? Who are they after this contest?
So, okay, let's jump out of the promotional line here a little bit. It's just essentially the second best fighter in this weight class after Tenshin Nasukawa. Both guys have lost to Tenshin Nasukawa, and both of them have created incredible legacies despite that. Losing to a guy like that, there's no shame in it. But yeah, this fight is just going to define their legacy. This is the biggest fight for both fighters. This is going to be the most important fight on their record. When we look back in 10 years, this is the fight that we're still going to be talking about. This is the fight that's still going to be trending on YouTube 10 years from now. So this is just like that Chuck Liddell and Wanderlei Silva fight. Maybe there wasn't a title on the line. Maybe both guys were at the end of their career, but it's still one of those fights that we talk about as a very, very important milestone kind of fight.
All right, as we wrap up, Tim, you ready to give me a prediction? What do you think's going to happen? Who's going to get their hand raised? And if you are being bold, by what method?
Man, I love Takeru. He is like the coolest guy in the world. He's one of those guys who fell in love with kickboxing as a young man because of the golden age of K1. And like, who didn't? But I can't look away from the miles on him. Getting in gym wars routinely, him struggling in his last few bouts. Honestly, if Rodtang has trained for this fight, I have him winning this fight. But that's just my prediction. Luke, what do you see in it?
Chaos. Chaos. I am waiting for this one. This is we've talked about it off air. Like, this is not necessarily our strong suit, which is why we wanted to bring you in. But even I am pretty hyped for this one. And it seems like the martial arts world in general is pretty hyped for this one. Tim, if folks want more of your work, where can they get it?
Man, I'm all over the place. I got an MMA show at Low Kick MMA, and then I have a kickboxing show, Kick Weekly, with Tim Wheaton on the Calf Kick Sports Network. Just look up Tim Wheaton. You'll find me. Links will be down below or whatever.
Tim Wheaton, thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
There we have it.
Luke, he's really good.
He's great. He's great.
Wow, he got me fired the hell up because, you know what? Our fans told us that when Rodtang fought Superlek and when also Takeru fought Superlek, we missed it. They're like, how are you guys not talking about that? I'm glad we're getting in tune to where we should be, and that just educated me a lot on what's going to happen on Sunday.
Yeah, it gives you, I mean, listen, of course there's going to be like more detailed breakdowns for the people who really want the hardcore stuff as it relates to kickboxing, but Tim was great, so shouts to Tim. Go follow his work. He's awesome. And then we'll definitely have him back, BC, because he is useful and smart and fun. So shouts to him. And like I said, if you can listen to that and not be interested in the fight, I don't know if you have a fucking pulse, man.
Well, let's look at a couple things here. He mentioned it could come down to how much Rodtang is training. Let's watch this video of Rodtang chaining his chin for Takeru's power. Luke, that seems ill-advised, dude. That's
okay. I mean, he's going to have insane CTE, but the fight's going to bang. Let's just be honest about that.
All right, we've got a face-off from them after the press conference, so you can see what we're looking at. That is Rodtang on the left, Takeru on the right. I love Rodtang's pants here, Luke. You?
Well, it's not the pants; it's what he's wearing on top of it, or whatever that is.
It's like,
but yeah, dude, fucking intense, crazy intense. I love it.
There's Shatri overseeing that one right there. Wow. Shout out to Shatri for putting this together. And Luke, Takeru did fight Superlek in January of 2024, and he got a super leg injury in the 5-round unanimous decision loss. Here's Superlek talking about the recovery from that.
膝の骨が折れちゃって、左の蹴りが、本当折れてる足だったんですけど、折れてる足蹴った蹴りが効いて、もうここで倒しきらないとダメだっていう気持ちで全力で振り続けてた感じでした。本当その蹴りの痛みっていうのが、折れてるところを何回も上から蹴られてるんで、初めて試合中に痛みで意識が飛びそうになったっていうか、拷問ってこういう感じなんだろうなみたいな。こう重傷だったんで、もう一回リングに立つことは難しいのかなっていう直後はそういう気持ちだったんですけど、でもこう治療して良くなっていくうちに早くやり返したいなっていう気持ちが強くなってきて。
Oh my God, Luke, that video just got me fired up. These guys are savage superheroes.
This is what I mean. Like, does one need to be doing lesser MMA if they can do stuff like this? I don't think that they do, to be honest.
Wow. All right, that goes down Sunday, Saitama Super Arena. And a reminder, watch.onefc.com is where you can purchase this global pay-per-view. A lot of MMA, some names we know that we mentioned right there. Very good stuff right there. All right, that wraps our top 5 topics. Now we'll get into a pair of brief fan segments. We put out the call, of course, to morningcombat@gmail.com, your pipeline to show Mikey your pipe.
Yeah, only pipes.
All right. We start off with an opportunity here to take the stand. Maybe we don't always say everything that's accurate. Sometimes, in fact, we are dead wrong.
Dead wrong.
We got one dead wrong this week. It's from Sadiq, and he says at 1:54 of Monday's show, March 17th, Luke referred to Jon Jones's haircut as, quote, the Kimbo slice bit. but it's actually just an avatar of the last Airbender haircut, you uncultured swine.
No,
Look,
these
I don't
fucking,
speak anime, all right?
these fucking nerds. Oh my God. Guys, I understand it's an anime reference by virtue of, if you go back and look at the picture, there's other things happening. I made a joke because Kimbo Slice also put one in his chest, as did Brian Ebersol, as like also a Kimbo Slice bit. I didn't think he was actually doing a Kimbo Slice bit. I just thought it was a joke to say it's a Kimbo. Get the fuck out of here with this shit.
Wow,
By the way,
Steve, you've been called.
by the way, like, is there some kind of concerted effort to ignore all of the various errors you're making and only focus on? Like, I feel like the last like 9 of these have only focused on what I mean. Which to say, fine, I get some of these wrong, but like, they're purposely not doing yours. I've noticed that.
Look, I think I'm undefeated, dude. I think that's what's going on. All right, you think Ariel?
They're trying to take me down a peg, which is fine. Come after me. I don't give a shit. But they're definitely you're the DEI fucking case here. They're not. You're getting some special treatment here.
You know who's getting some special treatment? Reggie J. Luke, he's back, man. I love that motherfucker.
Yeah, let's see his butthole.
Okay, we don't play that game in this house. Okay, look, we got one more fan segment for you. I'm surprised Daz didn't mahalo our ass on that dead wrong and give these MFers, right? Right, Luke?
Blast from the past.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, we got another segment called Fan Submissions where you send in your artwork, pictures of your wife in tight t-shirts. Luke, did you hear, by the way, that I had the great Saul A. of Louisville on my live ramble on Wednesday? Live from the ladder when he was cleaning gutters in Louisville. Great stuff,
dude. It was epic. He's literally on the gutters live. It was fucking awesome.
That's awesome.
Let's do it. This one's called Fan Submissions.
You've got mail.
Viewers. The immortal voice of Gaffney Jim Pierre right there. Let's hear from Long Island Rob. He says, hey, it's Long Island Rob here. Happy Friday. This past Saturday, I had another opportunity to coach and corner my longtime friend and training partner, Disco Danny Fox, for his second amateur MMA match. We worked on some things after our last match, even though we didn't get to display a lot of it. Why, you ask? Because Disco Dan won by TKO 20 seconds into the first round. He's carved out of stone with devastating power in his hands and a killer ground game. As BC says, he is coming on. Luke, let me know what you think of his performance.
All right, let's see.
Oh, wow.
A little bit aggressive, but that's oh, wow.
Kind of looks like Jack Della from this distance.
Dude,
right?
I'm telling you something. If you watch MMA at this level, I'm telling you, I've seen so many fights like this. If you just overwhelm your opponent, if you're like 1-0 or 2-0, if you just like take the fight immediately to them, they typically don't have the ability to just resist. They kind of just cover up because they're obviously inexperienced fighters. You'll win 80% of the time doing that.
What weight class do you think Disco Danny Fox is at?
I don't know, 45, something like that.
Because I think for our second fight under MK Promotions, right? Our first one is Daz versus Daz is going to bare knuckle Telvin Kipapa at the Lava Shack. But for our second one, can we get Christian DeGuerro against Disco Danny Fox for MK Promotions?
Shit.
You and I each pick a corner, right?
Wow.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
All right,
beautiful.
I'm down. That'd be fun as shit. I'd do that.
No, Cedar, are you down with this Long Island Rob character stealing everything you work for?
I was just gonna say I'm about to go see Danny Fox fight live next time. He's fighting in Brentwood, and it's right down the road, man. 30 minutes away.
Hey, shout out seriously to Long Island Rob, Disco Danny Fox. Congratulations on the win. I don't know if there's a future of you putting an MK patch on your ball sack, but we got a lot of love for you, DeGuerro, all the crew here. We love you. Thank you. Let's hear from the Rick Sanchez. He has one photo surrounding me.
Hi, I'm Luke Thomas. Every day, Brian and countless others like him chase the fleeting high of nitrous oxide in the back of an Arby's parking lots. Behind the roast beef, behind the curly fries, they're crying out for help. $1 a day. That's all it takes to save them. For less than the cost of a beef and cheddar, you can give Brian a future without the hiss of nitrous, a future where he's back in the studio, not passed out by the drive-thru. Your donation provides counseling, a warm meal that isn't Arby's, and a chance at redemption. Call now, 1-800-SAVE-BRIAN. Operators are standing by. Together, we can pull Brian Campbell and so many others from the Arby's abyss. Don't let another night end with the sound of whipped cream and regret.
Luke, thank you for launching your Substack to point out this injustice in the world.
For a
Yes.
good cause. You know what I'm saying? For a
Oh,
good cause.
That, Luke, congratulations once again on
Yeah,
extending.
thanks. Thanks everyone who subscribed. I appreciate it.
All right, great to hear right there. Thank you very much, the Rick Sanchez, for that. Here's RJ who has a photo.
So what's the implication here, that he's saving our asses?
Yes, that he has, come up from the earth to help carry the
I
carcass.
revived you from the dead. That's what.
Yeah. There's something to be said for that. That's
Shout
fair.
out RJ.
Although
Yeah,
but you don't look this cool. Can I tell you the truth about that one?
I mean, no one looks as cool as this.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Yeah. I heard you mention Edward Furlong earlier on that one card. He was great in T2, right, Luke?
He was awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, let's hear from Jeff. He says, good afternoon, gents. I believe the legend goes, quote, and with the herb of Hades, Luke stumbled into the land of Latinas. Cartagena pronunciation for the ever-cultured BC, Colombia, where he heard the sirens echoing, hola, papacito, and his comrades watched helplessly until they were taken hold by the siren call as well.
I mean, I feel like if you're gonna have a weakness, this is a pretty good one.
Yes, my weakness is wieners, apparently, Luke, of the edible kind, and yours is Latino.
Well, there's many kinds of edible wieners, BC, if you know what I'm saying.
I don't get down with that kind necessarily. That is hilarious. Thank you very much for your contribution, Jeff. Do we have one more in Long Island, Luke, or is that an empty spot?
That's it.
All right, that is it. Morning Kombat at gmail.com. And Luke, there it is right there. You can get your fan subs dead wrongs. Reach out to the show, complain, critique, whatever you got for us. We'll take it. Thank you. Luke, of course, I'll be getting on a plane in minutes. I will be Saturday night on the call. Prime Video, no pay-per-view, Prime Video, 8 p.m. Eastern, a triple header from PBC with the main event. Yeah, thank you very much. Mauro Ranallo, Abner Morris, Jordan Plant, and myself. Main event, Sebastian Fundora, first fight since that bloody war against Tim Tszyu last year, where he became a unified champion at 154 pounds. He'll welcome Stamford, Connecticut's own Cordell Booker. Now, Fundora, a big-time betting favorite here. A lot of potential big matchups for him in the future. But I don't count out Booker here because Fundora, Luke, he'll give away his height. He'll bend over and he'll just brawl with you. So this should be an interesting test.
Yeah, he's 1,000,000 feet tall and fights like he's Abdu Rozik. I mean, you just can't believe it. So enjoy that.
Indeed, right there. So that should be interesting. The triple header will also give us the return of Jesus Ramos Jr. in the co-main event. So could he be a future opponent? Look, if Fundora gets by this test and he is a minus 1,400 betting favorite, according to DraftKings, against the plus 750 Booker, is there a 154 you want to see him against most?
I mean, wasn't he supposed to fight Spence?
Yeah, I still want that.
Yeah, I would say that one. By the way, I also saw that PBC, or I'm not sure if it's a PBC event, but Tim Tszyu fighting Joey Spencer in Australia.
Yes, that is Saturday, April 5th. It's April 6th.
I like that fight.
Down under, and that will be on Prime Video, regular Prime Video as well.
I like that fight. I think it's a good fight.
I like that fight a lot. And then if he wins, they're already talking about doing Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman in July. So that could be interesting. Thurman, though, is saying, look, I'll fight anybody. Give me Charlo, give me Fundora, give me Spence, give me whatever. So, wow. Okay. There it is. Also, DAZN this weekend from Sydney, George Kambosos is moving up to 140, and he's taking on a late replacement. The belief is that he would then fight Richardson Hitchens for a title if that goes down, Luke. I don't think you care about that, though, at all.
I don't, no.
Thank you very much. That is the show that we have for today. So, Luke, anything? Tim Wheaton was a fantastic guest. We certainly hope to see more of him, Low Kick MMA and other places. You can follow us right there below our YouTube channels. Dude, I'm going to have an interview next week with Edgar Berlanga that I filmed last night. That yeah, he gets loose in turn 4. He wants all the smoke and all the money, Luke. So it's going to be interesting to see.
All right. Well, I look forward to that. And like I mentioned, UFC London watch along post-fight show live on my YouTube tomorrow. Be there.
All right. Main card minute. What time are we going live tomorrow?
I'm doing the full card tomorrow, 1 p.m. You could join me for the prelims, join Luke for the main card if you want, or join me for both. Yeah. Bong
there it is. Whoop. There it is. Thank you so much to all of you for coming in an hour early to facilitate my travel schedule, staff and viewers included. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the fights. Don't forget, Takeru versus Rodtang on Sunday should be fun. We'll be back in the studio Monday, Manhattan, Meadowlark, to break it all down. For Long Island Luke Thomas, this is Brian Campbell. Take care of yourselves, folks. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.